She walked on stage with a quiet confidence, dressed simply but standing tall, though not just in posture. Amy Cuddy wasn't a celebrity or a politician. She was a social psychologist with a story that in less than 20 minutes would change the lives of millions of people who saw themselves as small, as unworthy, as invisible. When she gave her TED Talk in 2012 titled "Your Body Language May Shape Who You Are," she didn't just teach people how to stand. She taught them how to reclaim a sense of power they thought they'd lost forever. But that power, it came with a price. Let's rewind. Amy Cuddy wasn't just talking theory. She had lived every ounce of her research. As a college student, she suffered a traumatic brain injury in a car accident. Doctors told her she might never fully recover, that she wouldn't finish college. But she did. Slowly, painfully, stubbornly, she rebuilt herself, mentally and emotionally. That experience didn't just inspire her work, it became the very foundation of it. Her idea that body language could shape not just how others see us, but how we see ourselves, that when she introduced the concept of power posing, the world listened. Standing like Wonder Woman for 2 minutes. It seemed too simple, too silly, and yet millions tried it. Some before a job interview, some before a big presentation, some just before walking out the door when they didn't feel like they belonged in their own skin. And many of them reported the same thing. They felt better, stronger, more capable. Then came the backlash. The scientific community didn't just raise an eyebrow, it raised pitchforks. A replication study in 2015 failed to produce the same hormonal changes Cuddy and her team had originally reported. Critics were ruthless. Her research was labeled flawed. Some even questioned her integrity. For a woman who had built her life around psychological resilience, this wasn't just academic criticism, it was deeply personal. The internet, as it often does, magnified the storm. Articles, blogs, and tweets painted her as a symbol of bad science. Her co-author, Dana Carney, publicly distanced herself from the study. Cuddy found herself humiliated, ridiculed, and dragged across headlines in ways that no male scientist ever seemed to be. She became the poster child for what many dubbed the replication crisis, a larger reckoning in psychology, where many studies couldn't be reproduced. But while some saw this as science correcting itself, others saw something more troubling: a woman who had spoken with vulnerability and passion, being punished for daring to connect. But here's the twist most people miss. Even when the hormonal findings were questioned, one piece of her research stood strong: the subjective experience of power. People felt different, they acted differently, they performed better, their minds responded to their own bodies, even if their cortisol did in single quotes. This matters because how we feel before a life-altering moment, whether it's a job interview, a first date, a court hearing, or a confrontation, can change everything. And Amy Cuddy didn't promise miracles. She didn't say power posing would give you a raise or a better life. What she offered was the idea that we can trick our minds into feeling less afraid, less small, that we can show up even when everything inside us wants to run. And that's where this gets personal. If you've ever walked into a room and felt like an imposter, like everyone else deserved to be there but you understand what Cuddy was trying to say. It wasn't just about standing tall. It was about choosing not to shrink, about deciding in those small and private moments that maybe, just maybe, you were enough. So let's go deeper. Power posing isn't magic. It's a tool, a psychological trick. And while the science around hormone shifts may be debated, the psychological impact is harder to deny. Think about it this way. If you fake a smile long enough, your brain starts to believe you're happy. That's not pseudoscience, it's behavioral feedback. The same applies to posture. When we slump, our bodies signal defeat. When we open up, stand tall, take space, we're sending a message not just to others, but to ourselves. Now, let's talk about the culture that couldn't wait to tear her down. In a field dominated by men, a woman who dared to speak to the public, to make science accessible, became a threat. Academia doesn't always reward vulnerability. It rewards precision, detachment, and often arrogance. Cuddy had the audacity to speak from her own story, to say, "I've been there, and I think this can help." That's what made people connect. That's also what made others uncomfortable. But in the years since, something remarkable has happened. Despite the criticism, despite the headlines, her talk remains one of the most watched TED Talks of all time. Her book, Presence, became a bestseller. She didn't disappear. She adapted. She kept talking, kept researching, kept helping people who felt small stand a little taller. Because here's the truth. Most of us aren't trying to be alpha. We're just trying to get through the day without being consumed by self-doubt. We're trying to show up as ourselves fully, unapologetically, even when the world tells us to shrink. And if standing in a bathroom stall for 2 minutes, with our hands on our hips, helps us do that, why not? What Amy Cuddy gave us wasn't a formula. It was a seed, a small shift in how we see ourselves. And yes, it got messy. Yes, the science was challenged. But isn't that what science should do? Question, test, revise, grow? Cuddy became a symbol not just of scientific controversy, but of the very thing she teaches. Resilience. She could have disappeared. She didn't. She stood her ground, adjusted her message, and kept going. That, more than any hormone study, is the real power pose. And here's the part that matters most. You might have come to this video expecting to laugh at a fallen scientist, but maybe you're leaving with something else. A little more compassion for yourself, a little more courage to take up space, a little more belief that even when you're doubted, criticized, or humiliated, you can still rise. Amy Cuddy was humiliated by science, but she still stood tall. And after hearing her story, you just might. 2. If this story touched something in you, subscribe for more stories like this. Share your thoughts below. We read every comment. And before you scroll away, remember, you deserve to take up space in this world, even if you have to fake it at first. If Amy Cuddy's story moved you, if it made you rethink the way you show up in the world, even just a little, then don't let this moment fade. Hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss more powerful insights like this. And tell us in the comments, have you ever felt like you didn't belong? Have you ever tried to fake it just to survive? Your voice matters here. Let's grow, question, and rise together.